up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Shady here, and today we're going to be diving right back into 90 Day Fiancé the other way. If you guys would like to check out my last video that I posted, I will link that in the corner here if you'd like to go and watch that first, and then we can get into the newer updates. All right, so without further ado, let's get right into it. So our first couple is Shekinah and Sarper. I think I left off with Shekinah pretty much prepping to get ready to go into surgery in terms of getting revisions done on her nose job. Sarper is freaking out and panicking way more than Shekinah was, because he wasn't really on board, but he was on board, you know, because it seemed as though when she was going in for a consultation that he was pretty on board, at least enough to tell the doctor, this is what I want done, this is how I want her nose to look. And the doctor was actually like, oh, those are some good ideas. Eventually, Shekinah gets rolled into the surgery, and Sarper is just sitting in the waiting room until they call him a few hours later to be like, hey, she's out, but she's obviously feeling very groggy. And Sarper appears to be the attentive, by your side partner. He's doing what he needs to do. He's caring for her, making sure she's good. They go home together. He's still doing that, still making sure she's taking her meds and doing everything that the doctor told her to do. He was basically acting like Nurse Sarper. So going into the whole thing, I think Shekinah's biggest worry was that Sarper wasn't gonna step up to the plate to really like take care of her, but he actually did. And now I think we're maybe a few months in and she's basically fully healed, fully recovered. And she says she's happy with her nose, and I have to be honest, I feel like her nose looked better before. Like now it's really pointed. It looks like a very like cartoonish nose, if I'm going to be honest. But hey, if that's what you're happy with, then all right. I think she should have just left that alone, but that's just me. After she recovers, she realized that the application that she had sent in for Sarper in terms of getting the visa to come over to the US with her, she had finally gotten a response back and he had been approved. So she decides to get all dressed up, all sexy, and Sarper walks through the door and she's holding her phone and she's just like, you know, surprise, like you've been approved. And Sarper is just like, yay. It was so clear that he was not happy really, but obviously didn't want to kill the mood. He eventually says that he needs to tell her that he really isn't interested in coming to the US and really wants to stay in Turkey. But in that moment, of course, he just wants to get, you know, his freak on. So he's not gonna kill the mood. So I was like, smart man, smart man. But at the same time, it is definite that they are going to need to have a chat. Instead of having that straight up conversation, this man decides, oh, I'm gonna propose. I'm gonna propose to Shekinah. We're gonna live happily ever after in Turkey and everything's going to be fine. Like that he's thinking. So he's going out to this suit shop. He's bringing his cousin in to go look for a nice suit to, you know, obviously take Shekinah out eventually to propose to her. And even the cousin's just like, this is ridiculous. You didn't really think this through. The fact that you're just going to propose to her to possibly convince her to get her to stay in Turkey, like, really? So I'm with the cousin on this one. I do think that Sarper and Shekinah just need to have a sit-down conversation, and please just don't propose right now. Just figure that ish out. Figure that out first, and then you could maybe move into, you know, the whole proposing thing, okay? So I'm just gonna do my best to talk over all the noise, but you could now in the background probably hear a little bit of my neighbor's landscaper chopping away at these trees, and it's just getting louder and louder. So I'm gonna have to get louder and louder, okay? But let's move on to Statler and Dempsey. So now it looks as though they are in a very strange place in their relationship. They're trying to make things work, and now that they're in this lifestyle of constantly moving around, this van life, it's going to get probably even harder in terms of always making sure that she has internet and the router's working and she has the connections that she needs, the plugins and whatnot are working. And you could see that Statler is starting to stress out, and Dempsey, I think at one point when they were in Switzerland, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they were in Switzerland. Dempsey, she's just like, you know, calm down. I'm gonna get whatever you need. She hops on her bike, but then she's like, listen, she doesn't need it right now. I'm just gonna take a little trip up these mountains, go see some sights, and then get what she needs and then come back in a couple hours. But you could see that Statler was getting kind of angry with that, like knowing that she more than likely took a little detour. She was getting kind of upset with the fact that Dempsey could, I guess, be free and go about doing things things when she's like stuck in the van working. Now it's coming to a head, and even Dempsey, she starts to break down. Statler is starting to notice that, yeah, this is really getting to us. Like, I don't know if this is gonna work. I think it was the next day or maybe a day or two after, she decides to plan like a little activity. They go on this train ride throughout the town. After that is when they decide to actually sit down and talk a little bit more in depth about what the plan would be moving forward. And Statler was like, yeah, let's just give it about 2 months, and if we come back in 2 months and realize that we're still stuck in the same place and not really making any progress with communication and us being happy in this van life situation, then maybe we should just sell the van and move on. But Dempsey is like, I agree with the part of us like moving on maybe, but at the same time, I don't know if I want to sell the van. But I don't know if that would work in terms of them being broken up and Statler is the one seemingly paying the majority of the payments off for the van. How would that work if you keep the van? So I don't know what's going to happen moving forward, but it seems as though they're in a very interesting and stressful place at the moment. Josh and Lily, we left off with Josh's brother basically trying to be a mediator between Josh and Lily, and they're now trying to understand each other a little bit more. And it seems as though after that conversation that they had in the market that they maybe understand a little bit more of where each other is coming from, but at the same time it seems as though the tension is still there. Also, what adds to the tension even more so is Lily's daughter coming into town to see Josh and basically meet him in person, and the dinner gets very awkward that they have together. Her daughter and then also Josh's brother, they're sitting there trying to get to know each other, and Lily's daughter, I can't remember her name for the life of me, but her daughter, she was like, yeah, I was really nervous to meet you, but I have some things to kind of get off my chest. And she brings up that he had posted pictures of him with another woman on his social media, and it was to kind of get back at Lily. And then he lied about her passing away, the woman that he was with in his picture. I was like, wait, what's happening? I was kind of confused with that storyline, so y'all might have to let me know what the heck was going on there. And then also at the end of all of that, Josh kind of made it even worse by saying to Lily that he knew her daughter coming into the situation was going to make things even worse and possibly destroy their marriage. Josh's brother is just sitting there like, you need to calm down. Like, it was really getting intense. The brother's just like, I mean, you would kind of need her to be on your side for this to also work. Like, you'd want to have a conducive family dynamic. I think Josh in that moment is just kind of in a mood and he's not hearing any of it. But after that, Lily and her daughter go out to this market and they're talking, and Lily, I don't know why she exposes this to her daughter of all people, but she's like, yeah, since he's been here, after several months of us not seeing each other, we have not slept together. Even after she brings up to Josh, okay, before this whole situation, Lily basically came to Josh and was like, hey, when it comes to the intimacy and like having sex and all that stuff, like, I'm gonna need you to initiate. Josh is just kind of taken aback, but at the same time, he's trying to listen to what she's saying. But it sounds as though he wasn't really listening and nothing has happened since that conversation. So I'm really worried because I know that that physical component, at least for some people, especially in Lily's case, because she brought it up, it's very important. But yeah, she exposes that to her daughter, that they have not been intimate with each other, and also it seems as though he's not really like financially contributing because he didn't really bring much to the table, and also he can't work, so he's kind of like a burden. But obviously she doesn't want to say that, you know. They're trying to have their traditional Chinese wedding, and she's asking Josh to help her with a hefty percentage of it, and Josh is just like, okay, I have a little bit of money saved. But you could see him still kind of being hesitant about using the money for that purpose, or just even in general, but he seems kind of hesitant about it. And then he turns around kind of like the morning of the wedding and says that, you know, the night before we were trying our hardest to get the money transferred and it wasn't working. So now the day of the wedding, they tried to use Josh's card and it ends up getting declined. Now Lily is basically looking at him like, is there actually money on your account? It just kind of leaves us there, and I don't know if they actually end up being able to pay for the wedding or, you know, they just cancel it. I don't know, because those wedding planners was like, listen, yeah, you gonna have to pay the rest of that money after that down payment, you know, before we actually get started on that wedding. Like, there's no way we're starting on the wedding and then you paying after. Like, we're not doing that. Let's move on to Corona and Inky. Now, I think that they are in a very interesting place because it again seems like Inky is not taking this relationship seriously, and it really becomes very noticeable when eventually Corona asks Inky if, based on what her friends had said to her when she went out with them a couple days before this, they basically said that they had seen him in like bars and stuff when Corona wasn't over in Iceland. She was back in the US. They had basically been seeing Inky out and about living his best life in these bars and clubs and stuff, and was talking to women, but they weren't sure in which way, you know? So it was looking very interesting. On this date, Corona basically asked him about it, and he kind of made himself look a little bit suspect, I'm not gonna lie. He was like, well, what was I doing? What were they seeing me doing, you know? And it was just kind of like, wouldn't you know what you were doing? Like, it was just weird. But then Corona kind of turns the conversation around to marriage, and he's just like, I'm not really interested, basically. In short, he's just like, I'm not really interested. You know, my friends around me, they've been together for years and years and never even got married. And then also I'm in an atheist country. Like, marriage isn't really seen as something to be taken seriously over here. Blah, 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 blah. Like, he just kept talking in circles, and you could see that Corona was clearly getting more and more angry. She's just like, I sent you rings. We literally talked about marriage several times. Why are you acting like you are new to this? You know that was my focus before I came over here, and now that I'm pretty much dedicating my entire life choice to basically come over here and live with you and be with you, you're now telling me you're not interested in marriage? Like, what? So she storms off, she gets a coat, she leaves, and she darts out of there, and he does not even try to go after her. He's just like, you know, she knows where the apartment's at, like, she'll find me. I'm just like, wow, so your girlfriend is out and about in a country that she doesn't live in, doesn't really know her way around, not like that, and you're just kind of sitting there all calm, like, oh, she'll find her way back to the apartment. What? Like that? Anyways, I kind of understand, like, yeah, like, if she's mad, like, don't bother her, but at the same time, it's just like, not at night when she's walking around alone, you know what I'm saying? Like, go get her. Let her be mad in the apartment with you where you could see her. Thank you very much. Regardless, she's walking around and she's calling her friends to, like, come pick her up, but they're not answering, and she's now starting to freak out a little bit. But at the same time, it's like Inky's just, like, back at the apartment just chilling, and I'm like, okay then. So that's the state of their relationship at the moment. But now we're going to move on to James and Tata. So we kind of left off with them planning their traditional Javanese wedding, and her dad is still kind of pushing a lot of expectations and things that they got to spend money on onto them. And it's very stressful, particularly for James, because he's the one that has to obviously provide the most money. And he's just like, yeah, this is costing us a lot, but you know, if this is what you want, like, I'm going to try my best to make it happen. But it seems as though everything goes off without a hitch. It was an interesting experience for James. He was talking about wearing high heels, and you look at the shoes and it's literally just like this high. I'm like, James, what are you talking about? High heels where? Like, what? We get to the part of the ceremony where they have this, like, I guess, dancer come in. It's supposed to be a young virgin girl or something, and she's supposed to be possessed by an angel, and she's dancing and all that stuff. So it was very interesting experience. Also, right before the wedding, Tata's sister Angel, I think is her name. Is it Angel? I don't know. But anyways, Tata's sister comes in, who they've had issues with in the past. Apparently, she didn't really care for James, but instead of just saying that, she started causing trouble within the relationship, trying to, like, make both Tata and the family kind of turn against James and not accept him, saying things like, oh, in America, he's cheating on Tata, he's out with these women doing other things. And it was like, wait, what? So obviously there was a lack of trust there. After that situation, they had cut her off for a good bit, and now they're just seeing her again after, I think, a year and a half, they said. And it's very awkward. You could tell that she's like, yeah, I really just I don't know how to even interact with you because I don't like you, you know? So it was very apparent, the dislike. But then at the wedding, it seems as though she's trying to make amends and trying to get back into her sister's life, so she knows she has to apologize about everything. And everything seems to be okay. James, of course, is still looking at her with a little bit of a side eye, but of course he's like, yeah, I forgive forgive you, but I would definitely be the same way. I'm like, listen, you burned me once, I'ma look at you a little strange until I feel comfortable, you know, like the trust has to be built back up. But then after that, you know, everyone's on a high after the wedding, but James kind of has a talk with Tata and is just like, listen, this is not gonna work. I'm sorry to tell you, but we're gonna have to go back to the US. And obviously it's a very emotional time. She's just like, no, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back to being alone in the US. I just don't have any family members over there, and like it's just very lonesome. And I really feel for her, obviously being in a totally new country, trying to adjust to that, also even adjust to the weather change. It's just a lot. I completely understand why she's so emotional in this moment, but at the same time I don't really think she's understanding the seriousness of the predicament that they're in right now, and the fact that they literally are stuck with paying a car that they can't even afford right now because they're not working. They're both in Indonesia and they can't make any money really, like no real income. And on top of that, outside of even paying for the car, they can't really just pay for like basic things to even live in Indonesia. So it just wasn't a well thought through plan. I think most of us saw this happening, like they were gonna have to eventually go back, or at least James would. But let's be real, if you're married, yeah, you're gonna have to go back with your man, you know, like be for real, or else you're gonna lose him. Now she kind of reveals that to her sisters, and the sister, particularly the one that didn't really like James, but you know, now was trying to get on like, you know, good terms with him. She's just like freaking out. She's crying. She's like, you know, I don't want to lose you again. And obviously Tata's getting very emotional as well. But at the same time, it's like, y'all didn't think this through. If it was a thought through plan, you paid off the car, you have a way of making some type of income. Maybe James could have some type of like something similar to what maybe Statler has, like where she could work anywhere, something that he could make substantial money from to actually take care of them. Like that would have made more sense to at least have some type of plan in place so that you guys could stay in Indonesia for a prolonged amount of time or forever. It just wasn't thought through, and I knew this was gonna happen. Like you gotta be realistic at some point. I'm happy that she did eventually explain to the sisters it wasn't just because James wants to take her away from them. It was because he can't provide while he's there for her. But then now she's trying to come back to James to basically give him like an ultimatum, like I'm not coming back unless you sponsor my sister for a visa. And this is the same sister that he already had issues with in the past, and now you're asking him to literally sponsor this woman for a visa. Like really? Money out of his pocket that he could be using towards you. You now want him to also now try to find some more money to pay for a visa for her, and they're just getting back on good terms. Like it's bizarre. And then of course during that conversation Tata just walks off, and I think she just has a very like immature way of looking at things, especially even with the whole plan of going back to Indonesia, where she's just like, yeah, I want to go back to be with my parents and my family. But it's like, okay, that's great and all, but you got to work out all the logistics to actually be able to stay there. You literally have to deal with adulthood at some point, okay? But that's all for them at the moment. I think that's pretty much it for 90 Day Fiancé the other way, because there hasn't really been much of an update with Joanne and Sean. It just seems as though their fairy tale that they thought was going to work out with her moving to Ireland to be with Sean was gonna be just fine, like everything was gonna work out, and it's just crumbling right before their eyes. And now it seems as though Joanne's mom is now trying to ask Sean like, hey, what's the plan? Right now it's not looking so great, but I don't really have much of an update on them at the moment. That's about it. But y'all let me know your thoughts on this one down in the comments. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.